We're here in wonderful San Diego, enjoying a beautiful morning. I'm going to be speaking very soon at my client Ruben Brooks' event. And if you haven't checked out the video where Ruben and I talk about how he built his business to earn over $150,000 a month, I recommend watching that video. Today's Neville Goddard conversation is inspired by this question that was submitted in the comments section. It says, "Hey Joseph, I love your work and have been listening for a couple of years now. It's been working, but sometimes I struggle to remain faithful when I'm caught in negative thinking patterns. Sometimes it's hard to not give into the feelings of not being enough," which is not true, as you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, complete, whole now. So we can discuss this. Could you do a video that covers how to stay faithful when you are feeling down? Certainly. To discuss this in a way that I trust is beneficial for you, I titled today's conversation Mind Map, "Let Delight Be as Delight Was." In Genesis 1:3, God said, "The light shall be," and the light was. This is the Aramaic Bible in plain English translation. So, as we have been discussing, you exist in heaven now as I am. You are one with the Father. I and the Father are one. I am existing in a perfect state of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. The light is already done, is complete, as in you are whole, you are perfect, you are complete, even if you think you are not. That is what we would call unwise thinking or thinking otherwise. So, with respect to the question, let's read it again and relate to this. They said, "Sometimes I struggle to remain faithfully when I'm caught in negative thinking patterns." So, the negative thinking patterns are not you. The individual may be identified with negative thinking patterns, yet the individual transcends the negative thinking patterns. If at one moment you can have a positive thinking pattern and in another moment you can have, we can say, a negative thinking pattern, what remains the same? What remains the same is you that exists perfectly beyond any thinking patterns. These negative thinking patterns, they appeared in mind. And why did they appear in mind? Well, those negative thinking patterns belong to what the Bible refers to as the old man. The second man is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. The old man thinks in terms of illusions of separation from the source of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, which is God. Thus, I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. To think otherwise would be unwise. No shame and condemnation. It was also stated, sometimes it's hard to not give in to the feelings of not being enough. In this regard, in this context, is referred to probably emotions. Because when Neville speaks of feeling of the wish fulfilled, he speaks of acceptance of the fact that the wish is fulfilled now. So if we say feelings in this context, they're probably referring to emotions. Now, emotions are energy in motion. The individual assigns meaning to the emotions. They may say this emotion means anxiety, this emotion means excitement. The individual is assigning meaning to the energy in motion. For example, when I first started teaching the speed reading workshops back in 2011, on the days leading up to the workshop, I was identified with particular beliefs that were generating the experience of the energy in motion being experienced in a particular way where I would call that anxiety. Awareness was brought to that untrue belief. What was the untrue belief? Well, the untrue belief was that people would not accept me the way that I am, which we see is clearly untrue. As I am, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Thus you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Thus people are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. We are the same. I am cannot be divided. The individuals that arise from the source of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, which is God, appear to play the role of generating heaven on earth, unless the individual is identified with untrue, unreal, illusory beliefs that generate that thinking. To be even more specific, if the thought appears in mind from the beliefs, it stems from the beliefs that are untrue, unreal, illusory. The individual may identify with it, which is not in accordance to their true nature, which is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. So, upon knowing that this is clearly untrue, I created autosuggestions. We'll talk about 3 ways we can release identification to the old man, to be as I am. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. We can also say, I relax into knowing that I am. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and live from that premise. So, upon bringing awareness to this untrue belief, I was able to create autosuggestions. I don't remember specifically what the autosuggestions were, but autosuggestions from the premise of truth. Knowing that I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, I can thus relate ideally to people from the premise of truth, knowing that they are also created in the perfect image of the Creator, also love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. So an autosuggestion could be, every time I present what it is that I desire to share, people accept me the way that I am, as they and I are no different, as we both exist in heaven now, in a perfect state of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, in the reality of God. They appear this way more so with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive. So that's a way we can apply autosuggestion. Neville had shared a wonderful autosuggestion. I have a lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit. This is the Dr. Millikan autosuggestion, which we've discussed a number of times. Notice, it's from the premise of having now. I have a lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit. So, how does this relate to the question? Well, Neville says, to cultivate the faculty of seeing the invisible, we should often deliberately disentangle our minds from the evidence of the senses and focus our attention on an invisible state, mentally feeling it and sensing it until it has all the distinctness of reality. And as we discuss, go to the end. Know that I am. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. By being still. By being still in the presence of God, you feel the presence of God as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Disentangle your mind from the evidence of the senses. One of the ways we can do it is through autosuggestion. What I recommend is being still, releasing identification, disentangling your mind from the evidence of the senses, or we could say appearances, physical appearances. As you experience the appearances, you transcend them. You exist in heaven now, in a perfect state of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And as you think, if the thinking pattern is not from the premise of truth, that I am in heaven now,
existing in a perfect state, in a complete state of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, devoid of separation from love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, then thinking patterns that suggest otherwise are unwise and thus not true. So by being still, we acknowledge our true nature, and these thinking patterns dissolve. Because the reality of God is good, pleasing, and perfect, as stated in Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. By being still, you renew your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. By being still, you acknowledge, I am in heaven now, and that your true nature is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And from that premise, you can only imagine ideally. Thus, to suggest something like, I have a lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit is completely authentic to the fact that you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. That all people arise from the perfection. I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And thus it is easy to mentally feel it and sense it until it has the distinctness of reality. So that's one way we can do it. And the key to this is repetition. And by that I mean, each time the individual appears to be identified with the false identity construct, the old man, that is an opportunity to release that identification, to be as I am. As I continue to remain as I am, the second man, which sees only the finest, fulfills the suggestion, as mentioned in Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. As Neville had also mentioned in the lecture where I got the Dr. Robert Millikan autosuggestion from, blessed are the meek, which means self-discipline, for they shall inherit the earth. So, autosuggestion from the premise of truth purifies the subconscious mind from the untrue beliefs of the old man, as also stated in the Bible. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. They shall see God everywhere. There's love, there's happiness, there's peace, there's bliss, there's fulfillment. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. The heart in the Bible refers to the subconscious mind. Now, self-talk is another way we can apply this. He says here, we move from mentally thinking of the end to thinking from the end. So a practical way of doing this is the individual may say, okay, it appears that I was identified with this thinking pattern. I feel uncomfortable. These emotions feel like anxiety to me. So in relation to what I mentioned earlier, when I release the identification to the energy in motions experienced as anxiety, I experienced the energy in motion as excitement. So the anxiety went away and I experienced excitement teaching the workshops. So as he said, we must move mentally from thinking of the end to thinking from the end. So I could say, it's okay that I right now experience anxiety. It's fine. Allow the emotions to release. It's okay if I was thinking, we could say negative thinking patterns. That's fine. No shame and condemnation. As you release the identification through this self-talk, we find it's easier then to think from the end. Then you could say something like, I have a lavish, steady, dependable income, consistent with integrity and mutual benefit. Thinking from the end. Thus, I am that which I desire to be now. The third way, and this can also be done all in combination, is by being still. In relation to Psalm 46:9-11, it states, He makes war cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks and bow the shatters and spear. He burns the shields with fire. He says, Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. So I and the Father are one. The Lord Almighty is with us. I and the Father are one. What's God's name? I am. Be still. In the presence of God, and the individual, or we could say I, relax into knowing that I am. In the presence of God, I know my true nature, created in the perfect image of the Creator as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. So the practice is in the moment. If we're about to become identified with the negative thinking and the emotions arise, allow the emotions to be released. Allow the emotions to be released by being still. By being still, the individual releases control, releases identification to the illusory thinking, allows the emotions to be released. And then when the emotions are released, reality is experienced. And by that I mean the reality of God, which again is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. So what happens as the individual continues to practice this, mind is purified, specifically the subconscious mind, where the old man beliefs are stored. These illusory beliefs are released, and after they're released, these kinds of thoughts no longer appear in mind. And if they appear in mind for whatever the reason may be, it's so obvious that they're untrue, unreal, illusory, that we no longer identify with them. They just maybe pop up in mind and disappear. And then you have transformed. So the key is practice. Let's go back to the start of the mind map, what I titled the mind map. I said, let delight be as delight was. Genesis 1:3, and God said, the light shall be, and the light was, as in it's all done. You exist in heaven now in a perfect state of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Thus, I am perfect now, I am ideal now is true. You are perfect now. You are ideal now. You can say, I am ideal now. To recall that you exist in a perfect state of bliss. You can be still to acknowledge that you are in a perfect state of bliss. You can, through autosuggestion, acknowledge that you are in a perfect state of bliss. To release identification to the untrue thoughts. And as mentioned, it is helpful to allow the emotions to be released, because what we find is that if the individual tries to suppress or repress the emotions, they may build up. And then as a result of this buildup of emotions, maybe there might be a lot more thoughts arising in mind that we could say are negative thinking. I've had a number of conversations with clients over the years, and I've noticed this myself as well. If I didn't allow the emotions to be released, there would be more negative thinking in mind. Emotions are energy in motion, and emotions also bring awareness to the beliefs that have been stored in the subconscious mind. There's nothing to fear when it comes to emotions. If they're bringing awareness to the beliefs, we simply allow the emotions to be released, releasing identification to those beliefs that result in the emotions being experienced in that particular way. So as mentioned, when I used to teach the speed reading workshops back in the days, leading up to doing them on the weekends, it would be what I would call anxiety. Because I was identified with beliefs that were related to the old man, from which I was relating to the emotions in that way. Upon releasing identification to those beliefs, which any one of these would work, or in combination, autosuggestion, self-talk, being still, what happens then is the energy in motion is transmuted. We could say, all of a sudden, I feel excitement. Why do I feel excitement to teach the workshops? Because that is what I genuinely desire to do. As I am, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, I genuinely desire to experience fulfillment with the workshops, not dependent on the workshops, with the workshops, because that is what I love to do. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, I let delight be as delight was. Creation is complete now. Thus I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, as I and the Father are one. And as the Father is greater than I experience delight more so with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive, as the outer appearances of God, as love, as happiness, as peace, as bliss, as fulfillment. as I continue to remain as I am, as I continue to return to the source from which I arise from, the sure foundation, I acknowledge that I transcend the illusory thoughts. As I allow the emotions to be released, to experience heaven on earth, more so each moment, as far as the senses perceive. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.